Homeowners, is your home on the market and not selling? Then ask yourself these 5 questions. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. You got Johnny and Angela with the Hatch Homes Group for a Monday housing market update this week. So this is for sellers. If your house is not selling, please look at these things. We as agents house hunt for our clients every single day. We see hundreds, thousands of listings. And it's actually quite frustrating to see so many listings that have these common issues in them that are so fixable. And for us looking for our clients, we want to get them into a house. And so we see these listings and we can kind of look through and be like, oh, wow, if they did this, if it looked like this, our clients would probably write an offer today, but it doesn't look that way. So, Johnny, what is the first thing that sellers could look at just to see if they're, help their house sell?
Yeah. Well, is your house clean? It should be when you're going in to sell your house, you should have a little bit of budget for, getting your house professionally cleaned. A few $100s goes a long ways. They can scrub that thing down and make it sparkle. And especially if it's not staged, if it's a vacant open house, like get that thing cleaned because smudges and grime and all that stuff shows. It shows up and it turns people who are potential buyers to your property off. Um, and yeah, so that one's kind of a little straightforward. Is your property clean? Has it been cleaned? And that's something that you can invest a little bit of money in and have it go a long way. And that kind of leads us into the next one is like be real honest. What does your property smell like?
Yes, I think that a lot of owners they get really used to the smells of their house and maybe agents don't feel comfortable being honest with them. Um, but there's got to be some honesty here. So one, some sellers love like very fragrant candles and things and uh room refresheners, whatever they're called. That artificial smell can very, very much turn off buyers. And I've had buyers that are like, I'm so sensitive to fragrance, like they get migraines and they're like, I can't even be inside this house. So just
Yeah.
think about that. I mean, I know like you want to make your house smell good. I get that. There's some other tips that we can go over, that we talk to our clients about if that's a thing for them. But really steer clear of anything very too artificial fragrancy. And then odor, right? Pet odor. We live with our pets and we don't always like we could just get used to the smell, but there's some things you can do to really combat that. One, I remember selling a house once where they had like the dog bed right next to the front door. So like the first thing you were smelling was that dog bed. And my clients ended up being okay with it. They bought the house that way. They got the air ducts cleaned. All the seller's furniture was out. It didn't smell like it wasn't like a permanent smell, right? So there's some things you can do to address like one, cleaning the house will go a long way, right? Like getting get you could even go as far as like taking out rugs that don't need to be there, taking out curtains that don't need to be there. Like those types of fabrics really hold pet odor. When it comes to something more extreme like smoke and urine, which we come across a lot, that's kind of a different ball game. We're talking more about adjusting for price if you can't do anything more substantial there. So another is musty odors. One of the biggest culprit of musty odors that I found is that when a house has a basement, basements always have a little bit of a musty smell, and you keep your basement door open, you're just having all that musty basement air like waft into your house. So close the door, maybe get a dehumidifier in the basement, like boom. That should really help a lot.
So the next one is buyers fall in love with a home online first. They typically find it online. So what do your photos look like? What does it look? How is your house being represented online? Is it crooked? Is it cell phone photos? Is it all dark? Has it not been, professionally edited to look well? That could be a big factor. There's been a lot of times where I've been holding an open house somewhere for another agent and someone came in and it can kind of be two sides of the coin. They've been like, "Oh, I hated this place online, but we thought we'd come anyway, and I actually like it, right? Because the photos were awful. Or, there's been times where the photos were really great, and then sometimes they end up a little disappointed. But the goal is to have your property well represented online so that people actually want to come. If they're just writing your property off based on some photos, you don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, it is true since a lot of people look online, like a lot of buyers have very specific needs, and some of them don't have time to like go out and explore if your property fits those needs. They need to figure that out from the photos. And, like for me, there's certain houses that I'm like, I really want them to work for my clients. And I'm like looking at the photos, I'm like, I just can't even tell what that is a picture of. What are they trying to show here? Or,
Hmm.
oh man, this makes the floor plan look super funky. Like my clients are not gonna like that. So like really like pay attention to photos, aesthetics.
Yep.
That kind of leads into, okay, you want people to like your house in person too, right? So like online, super important. That gets them through the door. So what we found a lot of the times is obviously staging we really believe in. I have my staging accreditation. If you have a vacant house, it's really, really great to stage that property. If you're not going to, not everyone has to, but if you're not going to, then address some of the red flags. Like, hey, staging might helps a buyer walk in the door and really feel the house, like feel themselves in the house, want to be in the house. If you're not going to do it, then like maybe paint that wall that's all scratched up, maybe replace the flooring that's rotten in the bathroom, like do some things because those little tweaks in person like will absolutely sell your house faster and for more money and
Yeah.
are typically a lot less than a price reduction that you would have to do if you don't get a buyer.
Yeah. And on the other hand, is if let's say it's an owner occupied home being sold, is your TV in front of the window, blocking the view? Oftentimes we live in our homes different than we would probably show. And so having us kind of, if you're not staging it and we're going to work with your furniture, rearranging things a little bit so that there's some good flow to your home and it can really open it up. I've been in places where the TV is in front of the window or the couch is just in a weird spot that makes you have to like do this weird shuffle and walk around to get to the other room. And it just takes away from the flow of your property. And another one, now I have kids. I have 4 kids and I have 3 that are under 5. I can understand how hard it is to keep home clean, let alone keep on top of the dishes. But if you're selling your home, you really want your countertops to be clean and you're, not cluttered and you don't want your sink full of dishes. So the best you can to hide some of that stuff, to put it away, to maybe box up the extra pots and pans you don't really need or something like that could also go a long way.
I mean, that's so huge. We talked to our sellers about. I mean, like even it's a benefit to all, right? If you pre-pack some stuff that you don't need, that just makes the whole move easier, right? You
Hmm.
already pre-pack, just keep the essentials out. And yeah, it's like one of my favorite things to do is to help like rearrange the seller's furniture just a little bit. I mean, sometimes little tweaks go a long way, but I remember showing this house that had like 20 chairs like in the house in the living room and the dining room. I'm like, why are there so many chairs? Like this is so weird. So just like maybe they need a lot of chairs in their life. I get it. I get it. But let's take some of those chairs out though, like not necessity, right? Okay, so our next tip. Uh Sellers have an option to offer a buyer's agent compensation to the buyer's agent, right? Pretty clear. I think a lot of people get that. Um, Now, before we go into this, just want to clarify we're not saying that you have to offer a certain amount. We're not saying that. And we're not trying to say that buyer's agent won't show your house because it's maybe a low buyer's agent compensation. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how, like what that impact does to your house if you are maybe offering a low or no buyer's agent compensation, right? So there's a movement right now, it's a requirement in Washington and soon be will be in Oregon for an agent to have a buyer's agent representation agreement with a buyer. So that buyer is supposed to pay their buyer's agent to represent them, right? So there's that. That's clear. That what you offer in your listing is neutralizing the debt to a buyer. Now, you can look at this different ways, but the way we're looking at it today is what you're offering in your listing is neutralizing that debt. Now, your buyers have down payment, they have closing costs, which includes lender fees, prorated taxes, prorated insurance, um, interest. What else they got? They got their
Any type of due diligence fees with inspections or anything like that?
inspection fees. Now, often that's a lot of money for a buyer to save to get into a house, right? So when if your listing isn't neutralizing the debt that they have for their buyer's agent representation, then your house is just a little more expensive, right? So like if you're priced at the top of the market, you're not offering a lot, so a buyer's agent compensation, so then the buyer's going to have to bring in a lot more cash to pay their agent for representation. You can't ignore the impact that has to a buyer, right?
Mhm.
Like,
It shrinks your pool a little bit based on if people being able to afford it or not.
yeah. So, that could be shrinking your buyer pool a little bit just in terms of affordability. One solution is to look at what your competition's doing. Like, what are they offering there? What did all the like homes that sold really quickly, what were they doing? Like that's a really good way to look at like maybe what you should be offering or what you should be doing or look at the price of your house, like price is always an underlying factor to any of these things. Like, if your house smells, well, hey, there might be a price that can combat that. So, but what we're trying to help our sellers do is not have to reduce the price so much. Just put a little bit of upfront effort, upfront like thought and care into all these things, and the price that you would have to reduce it to is going to be a lot more than what those things would cost you. And I hope that that's what's coming through right now.
So with some upfront planning and with the right team by your side, your home could be sold a lot quicker. So if your home's on the market and it's not selling, take a look at these things, see if there's something you can change. If you're thinking about putting your home on the market, take a look at these things and plan with us a strategy so that that time could be as short as possible. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, share this with some friends that you think might be looking to get into the market, and reach out to us if you have any questions.
Thanks.